The Rhodesian Bush War is one of the most important yet misunderstood conflicts in the history of southern Africa. The story of how the Rhodesian government of Ian Smith's ideas of integrated democracy clashed with the Nationalist Party's ideas of immediate majority rule, leading to a 15-year war resulting in the collapse of the country and the creation of modern-day Zimbabwe.
Here's the story of Rhodesia, a land both fair and great. On the 11th of November, an independent state. This was much against the wishes of certain governments, whose leaders tried to break us down and make us all repent. But
Rhodesia began as a British colony founded in 1895 by Cecil John Rhodes, who transformed the country by implementing mines for gold, copper, and coal. The country became very agricultural as well, exporting tobacco, beef, sugar, cotton, and corn. The name Rhodesia was directly named after Cecil Rhodes. Apart from its founder, Rhodesia is remembered for its leader, Ian Smith. Smith was the first native Rhodesian prime minister. Under Smith's government, Rhodesia would strive for modernization, bringing larger cities and towns. Before the war had broken out, the African population was split. Some African tribes chose to live in their traditional villages, while others chose to live in the modernized cities that the government was attempting to democratize. On November 11, 1965, Ian Smith declared unilateral independence from Britain, though Britain did not recognize Rhodesia as anything more than another British colony. After multiple African colonies were granted their independence, Smith knew a majority rule of Rhodesia would have to happen, but they had no idea how to integrate it. At the same time, many European people of the Congo had immigrated into southern Rhodesia after violent civil wars had begun between the different African tribes of the Congo after it had been granted its independence. The problem with majority rule that Britain and the rest of the world couldn't see was the violence that often broke out between different African tribes once independence was granted. Violence had been seen before in Rwanda, Burundi, the Congo, and Nigeria. Opposing tribes began violent civil wars and genocides once their countries were decolonized. During Smith's government, Rhodesian Africans who stayed in their villages were granted military protection by the Rhodesian government. Each tribe was protected from each other. While many Westerners may view all people of Africa as simply Africans, the Africans themselves think very differently, viewing people not of their tribe as either completely different or inferior in some cases. After Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, got majority rule, almost none of its native Africans knew what to do. Each tribe believed that majority rule applied to them alone and not the British idea of the broader African people. Ian Smith believed that rushing through the process of balancing the rule in Rhodesia after independence would lead to events similar to the crisis in the Congo. In the early 60s, many African nationalist groups grew during the tensions of the Cold War. These nationalist groups were tired of waiting for independence from the Rhodesian government and advocated a violent uprising against white Rhodesians to achieve majority rule. The main nationalist parties fighting against the Rhodesians were ZANU, led by future Zimbabwe leader Robert Mugabe, and ZAPU, founded by Joshua Nkomo. ZANLA and ZIPRA were the militarized wings of these nationalist parties. Both were communist parties backed and trained by the largest communist states, being China and Russia. ZIPRA considered itself a Marxist-Leninist party and was supported by the Soviet Union. ZANLA considered itself Maoist and was supported by China. This had raised the tensions of the war in Rhodesia, as well as the tensions of the Cold War, as it could now be proven that the guerrilla armies fighting against the government were Soviet-backed. As stated earlier, there was a clash between African Rhodesians who wished to stay in the cities with the hopes of seeing a Western democracy, and those who wanted to stay in their villages and preserve their traditions. Both had their rights to this. Most Africans who chose to stay in their tribes did not want to associate with the nationalist militias ZIPRA and ZANLA, after seeing the intimidation used to get farmers and villagers to join, which often resulted in brutal executions if they chose not to. This ruthless treatment of civilians is what convinced the Rhodesian government that they were dealing with terrorists. The Rhodesian army was funded by the government of South Africa, as well as having military support from Portugal. Something that is often forgotten is that native Africans chose to fight alongside the Rhodesian army, as they did not believe in the methods of war being used by the guerrilla armies ZIPRA and ZANLA. These natives feared the same thing that the Rhodesian government did, mass casualties of civilians and soldiers from the war that had broken out. Warfare from the guerrilla armies consisted mainly of organizing ambushes of the Rhodesian soldiers, utilizing the dense bush terrain of the country, as well as bombing raids on towns. The Rhodesian army focused on protecting cities and civilians from hit-and-run raids, while the elite fire force would send paratrooper support to soldiers caught in ambush attacks in the forests of Rhodesia. The Selous scouts worked to hunt down guerrilla insurgents and stop attacks before they happened. The Bush War lasted from 1964 to 1979. The Rhodesian army of Ian Smith held out against the guerrilla soldiers for 15 years before the fall of Rhodesia on December 12, 1979. The fall of Rhodesia created lasting effects on what is now the country of Zimbabwe. The country now faces mass unemployment, skyrocketing inflation, with the annual rate being over 85% as of April 2025, widespread famines caused mainly by Robert Mugabe's mismanagement of the country's farms, and the continued violence between the different tribes of the country. Rhodesia fell, but its legacy can still be seen today in modern-day Zimbabwe. And above all else, the story of Rhodesia should not be forgotten.
Alone with pride, 'cause we're for Rhodesia.